Excuse me, guys. Just a little technical problem there. Right, let's start again. So I'm going to welcome you again to Lonely Planet's Google Hangout on winter travel. There has been heavy snowfall in the East Coast United States, but we won't be directly discussing that. Although you can share information and ask questions on the USA branch of our Thorn Tree Forum. So what are we here to discuss? Well, it's the experience of skiing and snowboarding in the Northern Hemisphere, both where to go and how to do it. And we've got some experts from around the world to offer both inspiration and some practical tips, whether you're a winter sports ace or a newbie interested in dipping your toes into the snow. So I'm James Smart. I'm Lonely Planet's destination editor for Britain, Ireland and Iceland, and keen snowboarder. I just got back from a trip exploring the off-piste of La Plagne in the French Alps, where I left my board outside a restaurant in high winds and came out to discover it had blown down the mountain. Thankfully, we got the board back, no one was hurt, and I've got a couple of proper experts with me today. So they are Greg Benchwick, a Lonely Planet travel writer specialising in Latin America, the American West and winter sports, who's worked as a ski instructor in Vail in the USA and the Sierra Nevada in Spain. And I've got Sarah Reid, also a destination editor and a Whistler seasonaire and adrenaline junkie skier. So during the Hangout, we'll accept questions via the hashtag LP Hangout on Twitter or on the Google Plus event page, and you may well hear from our colleague Megan, who is in Korea, home of the host of the 2018 Winter Olympics, so she'll be active there too. But to start with, Greg, I'd just like to ask you what you think is the appeal of skiing and snowboarding holidays.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about it. Skiing is a horrible sport. The boots are uncomfortable, it's cold, it's freezing. Why would anybody in the world want to go skiing? And yet we all do it. I know I think it's going to sound a little cliche, but I think it's about freedom, man. You know, it's just about getting out there. You have the freedom to soar higher than you could ever soar by jumping, to go faster than you could ever go by running. And I also think there's this kind of anti-establishment aspect to skiing, where you're on that line between control and chaos. And when I go skiing, I feel that freedom. And I also have the chance to play with Mother Nature. So I'm out there, I'm with nature, I'm under the huge, beautiful bluebird skies, and that's what skiing is to me.
Sarah, Sarah? What I love about you today is you're so in the groove. You've got your goggles on, you've got your hat on. Sarah, can you tell us, is it a similar appeal for you?
Oh, absolutely. As you can see, I'm in London, but I'm all ready to hit the slopes next fortnight in Switzerland, actually. And it's the same reason that I was a seasonaire for 2 seasons. I think once you catch the bug, it's very hard to let go. And
there are lots of places you can ski all over the world. We're really focusing on the Northern Hemisphere. Where are the biggest places to do it, and what are the advantages of going to those kind of big resorts, Sarah?
I think the advantage of those bigger resorts is just that those guys, they know how to do it. They might get a bit crowded, sure, but you've got more runs, more instructors, often better instructors. Important thing for a lot of people, more bars. And one of the reasons I really loved being in North America, and Whistler especially, is that I find North American resorts are just really well kitted out. Runs are really well marked, so whether you're a beginner, you know, looking to find a green run that's best for you, or an expert looking to go off-piste somewhere safe, that's pointed out for you, and there's really great patrols, and you feel like you're in a pretty safe environment. It's just sometimes when you see those lift queues that it's a bit frustrating, but if you know where to go, you can always avoid them.
And what are your favourite resorts, Greg?
You know, so I'm going to take you across North America. We're going to start absolutely up in Whistler, go ski British Columbia and Canada. If you have the chance, go ski Alaska, hit it up, you know, go get a helicopter ride out of Valdez or one of these smaller places. But that's really not attainable for a lot of people, and you have to be an expert skier to do it. So you also have the option to go ski a place like California. Tahoe has the largest grouping of ski resorts in North America. That's Lake Tahoe. up in the Sierra Nevadas in Northern California. And the thing I love about Tahoe is you can go skiing during the day, then you can hit a casino at night. It's absolutely brilliant, and it has that totally cool California ski vibe. You're hanging out, you're wearing sweatshirts, and you're just having good times. And the slopes there are amazing. So in California, you get what we call Sierra cement. That's really heavy snow. They get a ton of it. I've been on 10-foot snow weeks at Tahoe, and you get dumped, and then the next day, everything's pretty solid. But that day that you get the dump, I tell you, it's amazing. And the terrain is super steep. They have tons of natural little mini half pipes to ski, and it's a really cool vibe. Now, for me, I'm a Colorado native, and I gotta say, Colorado has the best skiing in the world. All right, not paid for by the Colorado Tourism Bureau. That's my own perspective. What happens with the weather is it hits the Sierra Nevadas in California, comes across the states, and then there's a giant desert, right? So the weather starts to dry out, all the snow dries out, and you hit Utah, places like Alta, Park City, Canyons, Powder Mountain. You hit those ski resorts, and it is the softest, most beautiful powder you will see in your lifetime. Utah gets more powder, I think, than Colorado. The thing about Colorado is we have really great developed resorts. We have that awesome après ski, and we have iconic resorts like Vail, Aspen, where the glitterati of the world come. Colorado resorts, there are 20-plus major resorts in Colorado. I love Aspen. It's some of the best skiing in the world, and I think we'll get to some of the smaller Colorado destinations as we continue the chat. Then you go up, and of course you have Jackson Hole and Big Sky, which are awesome destination ski areas with little around them.
And we're still in Colorado here, Greg.
That's up in Montana. Yeah.
Okay. So there's been a lot of talk about North America so far. I'd love to say that I've compared North America and the Alps, but the truth is I've been to the Alps. I've not been to North America. I'd absolutely love to, and I do love the Alps. I do love these little interconnected villages you get, the tree runs, the glaciers on the top. Sarah, you've skied in the Alps as well. What do you think is the biggest difference between Europe and North America?
Oh, well, I think tree runs is the key phrase there, and North America, I mean, you've got these huge, big pine trees, and that's heaps of fun, whereas in the Alps, often the snowfall's a little too high for the tree line. So that's a little bit different, and there's definitely a different ski etiquette in Europe and North America as well. You've really got, I mean, there's some fantastic skis in Europe, but you've really got your hardcore powder hounds in North America. If on a power day, if you're not in that queue by 7 a.m., then you may as well go home. Whereas in Europe, you can sort of roll out of bed or come straight from the bar at sort of 9, 10 a.m. and still score some fresh lines because most people are taking it pretty casually. So there's definitely pros and cons to each. I've been lucky to ski a bit of the Alps since I've been living in Europe, but I must say my heart's still in Whistler.
So we've done quite a lot of talking so far about the big resorts, and that's where most people go, and we discussed there are very good reasons why people go there. There are, of course, more niche destinations in the regions I manage for Lonely Planet. We've got Iceland, lots of people exploring there, and there's also Scotland, which has very varied conditions, but can be great on a good day. Are there any other niche destinations that you'd recommend, Sarah?
Absolutely, and this is where you can have a lot of fun. Sort of at the extreme end of things, something that's becoming a lot more popular these days is skiing at the South Pole. So a lot of sort of cruises now, like you want to go to Antarctica and you can now sort of add skiing onto that, or just do sort of individual trips out there, which is really exciting. And then sort of moving up to, well, getting close to the North Pole. Another sort of popular thing emerging now is like liveaboard skiing. So you can head up in a boat or even in a kayak and, pull your kayak up to a glacier, hike up all day and ski down. And some of these boats are, all with their own hot tubs and everything, as they do in Scandinavia. So you can sort of, soak the hike away at the end of the day. And obviously, that can be sort of quite expensive and is, for experts. So in the other scheme of things, there's a lot of destinations where it might be a different destination, but the skiing's not all that tough. A great new one is actually Azerbaijan, which will be hosting the first European Games later this year. They had a new ski resort open up last year at a place called Shadag. Brand new, shiny lifts, but the skiing's not that tough, and it's just, a really interesting corner of the world. You pop over to Azerbaijan and bring your skis. So that's quite cool. And there's a few other destinations in that region across the Stans. Uzbekistan, for example, has some interesting skiing. And right next to Azerbaijan is Georgia, which few people know has probably the cheapest heli skiing in the world, and it's not too bad either.
Great, thanks, Sarah. We've got Sebastian on Twitter also mentioning Slovenia has a big history of skiing, and I think ski jumping as well. So we'll have more information on that on our Google Plus event page. But as well as these very exciting places, which Sarah's done a great job of talking us through, there are places that are simply smaller resorts, Greg, which can offer a very different experience.
Yeah, I'm going to take you through North America again to some of the smaller spots. Everybody goes to Valdez, Alaska to go heli skiing, and what's happened is those good lines are getting poached, and it's become a scene. So they're setting up heli operations in places like Cordova, just amazing bottomless powder. If you go up to the areas in Washington State and British Columbia, you have a ton of smaller ski areas, like Whitewater, British Columbia. I've never skied there. My friends guarantee it is the deepest powder they've ever skied. You have Alyeska in Alaska, and you have Crystal Mountain in Washington State that are just really awesome. Now let's come over to a little place I like to call Taos, New Mexico. That is, talk about, you have the sophisticated lifestyle of Taos, and then right out there, outside of the town, you have an amazing ski resort that nobody ever skis. You always, they limit the amount of people that can be on the mountain. You always have fresh lines. It is awesome. Here in Colorado, we have a place called Silverton Mountain that has one chairlift, actually. And you can ski 1,800 acres of terrain from it. No gapers allowed. This is a serious big-time mountain. And down there, southern Colorado, we also have Wolf Creek, which gets the biggest snowfalls of all of Colorado. And I've been there for weekends with 20-inch dumps every day. And it's an amazing little small mom-and-pop resort. And that's what skiing is about to me, is getting out there and exploring new places.
So lots of inspiration here. Skiing can also be seen as quite an expensive holiday that can hold people back. Can you do it cheaply, Greg, and how would you recommend doing it cheaply?
Well, I've been a dirtbag my entire life, and I always have a good way to save some money on the ski slopes. It's unfortunate because skiing has gotten so expensive that it's becoming a rich man's sport. But it doesn't have to be. One of the top tips and top ways to get around it is to get a season pass. So right now in Colorado, you can get an Epic Pass, and that is the Vail Resort's Mega Pass. And what that's going to give me is Breckenridge. Imagine these resorts that you're getting. These are amazing resorts for $500. You're getting Breckenridge, Keystone, Arapahoe Basin, 10 days at Vail or Beaver Creek. You can pay a little extra and you can get a full open pass at Vail and Beaver Creek. Then you can go over to California on the same pass and ski Kirkwood and I believe it's North Star in Tahoe. Those are awesome resorts, and you get a couple days in France. Through their partnership. Vail's it's a huge company. The other way to ski on the cheap is to pre-plan your trip. That means you have the condo, you're sharing it with a bunch of buddies. You're self-catering. So when we were in college, we would just go grab all the chips, all the free crackers, and mix them with ketchup and put it in the microwave. I'm not saying that's the best lunch. Probably now that I'm a little more sophisticated, I pack a lunch, but that's going to save you $20 on the slopes.
Great, thank you, Greg. We've had another recommendation on Twitter. Actually, I don't think for good value, but it's Kicking Horse in Golden, British Columbia, Great Mountain. Sarah, you're going to talk about a few other places as well. I think places where you can get better value than perhaps if you're in Europe, going to France or going to Switzerland.
Sure, I think sometimes trying to ski cheaply is often a matter of where, and I think you really can't discount some of the lesser known resorts because you can, it might not be Whistler or Val d'Isere, but you can have a great time on much less money. I think the beauty of living in the UK and anywhere in Europe is that there's a ski resort just around the corner or probably only an hour's flight away, and you can often get week-long passages for as little as £300 for a whole week skiing. Some really interesting destinations to look into are places like Andorra, Bulgaria, even Turkey, which is an interesting one. And the skiing might not be 5 stars, but it can be pretty close.
Yeah, and one of the nice things I always find about going to a different country is that as well as you don't just get the mountain, you also get a different culture, a different skiing culture, and that can be great fun.
Absolutely.
I'd like to pause now for the great debate, ski or snowboard. I'm a snowboarder. I think skiers are a bit weird, apart from when they can help me when it's a little bit flat, of course. Greg, where do you stand on this?
We have a saying here in Colorado, if it was easy, they'd call it snowboarding. Don't want to offend any of our snowboarders out there. No, you know what I learned when I was a ski instructor, and I'm bi-curious. I have both skied and snowboarded and actually telemarked for years. And what I found is, especially as an instructor, snowboarding is really horrible the first day. The second day, it's just about as bad. By the third day, you really get it. It's this intuitive learning curve. You just get it. It clicks. And if you're somewhat athletic, you can learn to snowboard, and you can learn to snowboard pretty well in a short time. Skiing is much easier that first day. You got a tripod below you can stand. You got poles to hold you up. But to master it is going to take quite a bit longer. I've seen on the slopes a lot less snowboarders, and it's ironic because snowboarding actually saves skiing. That new influx of young punks on the slope really made it brought skiing back in a big way. And now when I'm sitting in lift lines, I see less and less snowboarders. I think it was about half, and now it's going back to skiing, baby, because we got the new skis, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm gonna keep flying the flag for snowboarding for a while. Yeah, I have to say. But there are also other activities. It's not just about sliding down the hill on either one piece of wood or 2 pieces of wood. There's a lot of other things you can do in ski resorts. So a couple of weeks ago when I was in the Alps, I took a ride down an Olympic bobsled track, which was terrifying and brilliant. I was not steering or anything like that. You just sit in it and go down very quickly. So there are more activities you can do. Sarah, what do you like to do when you're in a resort and you're not actually skiing?
That's a tough one because I'd always rather be skiing. But if the weather's not that great, it's all about après for me, and there's a very different scene sort of in from Europe to Australia through to North America, but anywhere you are, it's always fun. But obviously, if you don't want to spend all your time in the bar, there's so many other things to do these days, and I think a lot of resorts worldwide, especially in the Alps, are really kind of stepping up their other offerings. You can go on sleigh rides, which is quite romantic, snowshoeing, even try out something like telemarking, or take a guided off-piste trip or something like that if you do want to stay on the skis and do something different. So there's definitely a lot of different things that you can do.
Yeah, Greg, is that something you do when you sound like someone who pretty much wants to ride the mountain the whole time, but do you do other things as well?
I would love to ride the mountain all day. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so her ski trips last about 2 hours, and then we're inside having hot cocoa. And I think these tips will be especially good for families because you can't just ski all day long when you have little kids in tow. I love ice skating, and some of the resorts have amazing ice skating rinks. Keystone Resort has an ice skating rink that is, it's the size of 5 football pitches or something like that. It's a huge lake. You go around. It's absolutely a blast. You can skate after you ski if you really have the energy to do that. The other thing that's great in some of these places is the hot springs. So just outside Steamboat Springs, one of my favorite resorts in Colorado. It's a kind of a further away destination resort on the western slope of Colorado. There's Strawberry Hot Springs. They're up in the mountains. They're primitive hot springs, just natural pools. It's amazing, and it's clothing optional after dark. Lots and lots of fun. One thing that we do here in Colorado, we do a lot of backcountry skiing. We do a lot of snowshoeing. We do a lot of backcountry skiing, and it's a great way to get out there and explore. You have to be safe about it. The snowpack is really unsafe out there, guys. So if you don't know how to go into the backcountry safely, you need to have a guide, and you need to make sure that you're safe. We also have a hut system in Colorado. So if you don't want to go to the ski resort, you can ski from hut to hut or yurt to yurt, and you stay in these remote huts that were built right during the World War II. They were built as a way for the mountain infantry to train for mountain warfare. And the hut system is still there today. You can go to the huts, hang out with all your friends, and backcountry ski during the day.
That sounds amazing. Just stepping in there about hot springs, if that's something you love, the place for you is definitely Japan, where most hotels have their very own onsen, so that's a really cool thing to do. Aside from the fact that Japan has some of the lightest powder in the world. Yeah. Desperate to get there.
So guys, we've been talking about getting off-piste, or Greg, you certainly have. A lot of the image people have, I think, of skiing and snowboarding is they watch these videos which have these pounding soundtracks, and you have these great visuals, you have people jumping off massive precipices, doing huge jumps, flipping around and about. It looks awesome, but it's a long way away from most people's experience of the sport, and perhaps it can look a bit intimidating. Is there an easy way to start trying that sort of thing, Greg?
For me, skiing is just about pushing your own personal limits. Whether you're going and you're taking your first chairlift, or you're going and skiing a blue, or you're hucking a cliff. It's about knowing your limits and pushing them just a little bit. I don't think you're skiing if you're not falling every once in a while, at least. We do have, some of the resorts. Copper Mountain Resort here in Colorado now has a foam pit, and you can slide off and jump into the massive foam pit. The pro snowboarders and skiers that I've known in my life always came from a different sport. So they were gymnasts or they were divers, and they just felt really natural doing those amazing flips in the air. But I say just, go for it and have fun and know your limits.
How about you, Sarah? Would you go to the snow park, and if so, how would you do it?
I do. I mean, having learned to ski in Australia and been on some very small jumps, sort of arriving in Canada and seeing those terrain parks was something else. And I did work my way up to a large jump, and I tell you what, it's pretty scary, even after being in the resort for 2 years. And as Greg touched upon, you've just really got to work within your own limits, and a lot of what these guys are doing in the park, as Greg said, you know, they're professionals or come from a really elite background. That stuff is hard, and also the landing is harder still. So if you're going to try the terrain park, my best advice is to start small and always wear a helmet. Something else to consider as well is a little bit of body armor as well, especially if, you know, maybe you're a skateboarder and you want to try and hit the rails on a snowboard. You come down and it hurts.
Yeah, I can second that. I've done several rails on a snowboard, and most of them I haven't made the end of. So yeah, I definitely second that. One thing skiing and snowboarding can seem like is it's quite a kind of distinct trip, a discrete trip. It's kind of, you know, you go snowboarding and you're in your bubble and you don't necessarily see what's around you. Are there places you can combine winter sports with a wider trip, Greg?
Sure. So, you know, in California, you can surf and you can ski in the same day. Talk about an amazing trip. You could start your day in Santa Cruz for dawn patrol and then head up to Kirkwood for some really gnarly afternoon skiing. In Colorado, I would love to just do an extended trip. The U.S. has just amazing national parks. So my dream trip starts in Telluride, southern Colorado. I head down. Maybe I go to the Grand Canyon, maybe not. Maybe I go up to Zion National Park, cruise on up through that middle part of Utah that is just gorgeous in the winter. It's desolate. Nobody's there. I get a mountain bike ride at Moab, and then I'm skiing Alta for fresh powder the next day.
Sounds wonderful. Can you do that in the rest of the world, Sarah? Sounds pretty dreamlike.
So I was just sharing Greg's dream there, wishing I was there. I think another way to do it is just sort of tie in those trips with a city break. I mean, if you're going all the way to Japan to ski, you know, why not pop over to sort of Tokyo or Osaka as well? You know, spend a bit of time in the cities. Some cities are great to explore in winter, even your typical summer destinations. You know, maybe they're a bit less crowded or they're a bit cozier, and yeah, so it's definitely worth looking into. Not many places in the world that you can ski and surf in the same day. I was just thinking from Australia, you could probably, you know, drive to Sydney by the afternoon, but it's going to be cold.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about the Sean on Twitter has mentioned great restaurants in the village is another great thing to do. And one thing I'd say is if you're in the French Alps, for instance, you're not really that far from Lyon, which has a great gastronomic scene. So especially in Europe, there are all these different traditions that you can dip into down the mountain and up the mountain. And well, talking about being up the mountain, we do hear global warming, of course, is affecting the world. What is the future for skiing in the light of that, Greg?
I think that it's really going to transform the sport, and the sport is going to have to transform around it. What's happening and what we're seeing is because of changing climate conditions, it's snowing at the base of ski areas. Or it's you're getting these really odd storm cycles where you'll get massive dumps of snow, and then you see nothing like we have in Colorado for a while. What ski areas are doing is they are starting to really understand that they need to take proactive steps to deal with climate change. Obviously, skiing is not the most environmentally friendly sport. People fly to the ski areas to get there. They get on the ski areas. Ski areas use a massive amount of water for snowmaking, and they're using and they're in some cases cutting down trees to make room for runs. And they just have a lot of people in Mother Nature. So some leaders in this field are places like Aspen that are taking huge steps to offset their carbon impact. They're going solar, and they're well aware that at the base of Aspen, they are not going to have natural snow within the next 10, 20 years.
Sarah, would you have any tips on that as well?
Absolutely. I think it's just a lot of it comes down to being more flexible. I mean, if you're used to, always booking your Christmas ski holiday or something like that, that's something that you're going to have to reconsider in the future, because as the weather becomes more unpredictable, you might not get your first snows until January, maybe even February, same at the end of the season as well. And it's tricky, for families and to plan around your work to sort of to have that last minute availability, but I think we're just going to have to adapt with the sport, and if you love it, you'll find a way.
And how about these big internal snow domes? Have either of you visited these?
I haven't personally, because snow domes, they are really more for learners. I mean, you can't really get, the perfect black run vertical in an indoor dome. But I think for beginners, they're great. And obviously a cheaper alternative as well, if, you don't want to fork out to spend a week on the slopes when you're just going to be, on the bunny runs anyway, then, you can go to London or even crazy places like Dubai. And have a whirl, and it's a bit of fun, if nothing more.
Yeah, we've had a message on Twitter. Florian says skiing directly to a hot spring is also possible in Iceland, so that sounds pretty good. Just a final question, and something you touched on previously, actually, Greg. It was going as a family. It does become a different kind of holiday, I guess.
Absolutely, and I started skiing when I was 2 years old, and some of my warmest memories of growing up are ski trips with my family. It's an absolutely amazing family sport. You're together. It can be tough. It can be cold, and then you have hot chocolate, and you're warm, and you're sitting by the fire snuggling. That's absolutely amazing. My biggest tip is to be patient, to only go on the warmest blue sky days. And make it easy. So I have a 4-year-old daughter. I'm tried to teach her to ski. I was a professional ski instructor for a long time, and that was the biggest mistake I made in my life. Make that investment in ski school. Is absolutely worth every penny.
Great. I think we're probably due to wrap up then. I'd like to say thanks to our guests, to Greg and Sarah, to everyone who has commented on Twitter and coming on the Google Plus page. Thanks to those who watched, and lots of people can watch later. There's going to be a recording of this on our YouTube channel shortly. So for further information, you can check out lonelyplanet.com/winter-travel. Or the Snow Business branch on our Thorntree forum. So I'll just thank our guests, Greg and Sarah, one more time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
And we will hopefully see you all on the slopes.
Absolutely.